Dayton, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate it. I think I've known you for over a decade now, and I may have met you at a BevNet Live when you were running Function, when you were the founder of Function. And I've seen how you transitioned from founder to investor and not only built incredible community around you and BFG with Tom, but just an incredible portfolio with Midday Squares and Collie Power and Vacation and so many others. And so I also, as I reflect, I think about the conversations we've always had over the years around leadership and org and culture. And I just know how much you appreciate that. So I'm excited to dive in with you today and just get a little bit perspective based on your experience and learnings over the years. So thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
I love it. Thanks, Sean. And likewise, it's been really great getting to know you over the last decade plus, and appreciate all you do for the community and really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Knowing that you've had a lot of experience, not only being a CEO, but hiring CEOs for brands and being a part of that process, what are some qualities and characteristics that you prioritize when you're going out to identify an incredible leader for a business?
Great. Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot, and it's something you're kind of constantly thinking about as you're meeting founders, meeting management teams, and evaluating, whether they can investment and to form a partnership. I think first and foremost, I try to think about whether this person is inspirational and someone who instills confidence when you're speaking to them, and really speaking from a place of authenticity. I think a lot of the founders that we've had the privilege to back have been solving problems that they were frustrated and weren't able to find a solution for. And as you know, like being a founder is a 24/7 job, and in some ways, so is being an investor, because I think we want to be there for our founders. And I think if you're around someone who's inspirational, who's able to draw talent to them, because they're like their personality is so magnetic that when you leave that conversation that you picked up at the park, more energized and more excited to work with this person than you were hours before, I think that's really telling. And, as you know, it's such a long road. I think you need somebody who can really set that vision and articulate that bold vision to get people excited. So, that probably comes to mind first. I think, there's a lot of what I would consider more business operations, blocking and tackling, resilience, grit, and analytical judgment that's kind of underneath that. But I think it starts with just being inspirational.
That I love that. I love that. And I agree. I mean, whenever we're going out and doing a search, I mean, there's the operational execution that you can truly measure, but you're talking about inspiration. How do you assess that? Like, how do you get a feel for that?
Well, I think, maybe a more like objective way to measure it is just around that kind of talent side. Like, are they able to attract a great team around them? Is this somebody who really is able to motivate people and get them to support the mission and work against the mission? I do think a lot of it's subjective in the sense of, if you're feeling one way after these conversations, do you feel like you're getting answers? Do you feel like you're, really, really kind of getting consumer insights because they are obsessed about this problem that they're trying to solve, and they've been frustrated with all the other solutions that have been out there, and they have some consumer insight that's kind of led to this interesting product?
What I heard is, CEOs, leaders can truly articulate and clearly share how they've accomplished certain goals, right? But then there's, the other side of it of truly being inspirational and magnetic, but in their experience, being able to build incredible teams, right? The best CEOs time and time again build the best leadership teams. And the BFG and the involvement you've had with Birch Benders, I mean, for me, just watching that business, truly incredible. What, in terms of your perspective, what was it about the team and leadership that ultimately helped it become an attractive business for an acquirer?
Yeah, no, it's been It's a great case study that we love to talk about. Obviously, it was a great outcome for us. I mean, honestly, I think the most critical piece of that was hiring Raj Babu, who selfishly is now our partner at BFG. But we first got to know Raj through Birch Benders, and at the time, he was an executive at White Wave doing corporate M&A. So he worked on the Danone transaction. He'd worked on the Vega transaction, and really had a lot of experience from the other side of the table. That combined with just some of his experiences in his previous life around being a banker and consultant, he was able to kind of speak the corporate language, characterize the opportunity in a way that was attractive for suitors, and really position the business in a very attractive way. I think the other thing it does, having someone like Raj in that seat at that time, I think he was originally hired as CEO and then became president. But I think if you're buying the business, you feel like there's a lot less flight risk. You already have like somebody that you can trust on the inside to manage this business after you own it. And so Matt and Lizzie, fabulous, amazing founders of Birch Benders, were really smart to bring on Raj at that. I think it was about 2 to 3 years prior to exit,
Mm.
which I think is kind of the timeline that's needed, right? To build the analytical story, to launch a couple more SKUs, to show that the brand has the ability to carry in other channels or other formats, all of that kind of stuff that the next buyer wants, leaving some kind of meat on the bone for the next buyer and to be able to tell that story. There was a couple of other folks that were really critical. One is Travis Spieth. He was in charge of, I think, strategy and analytics technically, but also a former Danone White Wave guy who Raj, and you're telling the story with data once you're that size, right? I think going back to the inspirational leader CEO, that's awesome when you're 0 to 30 or 0 to 20 million. That's really what it takes to get like a foundation started. But there does come a point in the company's trajectory where you have to be leading with the data story. The audience changes, so to speak. And so Travis was really great in that regard. And I guess the other name that comes to mind is Lucy Rand. You probably know her, but she's awesome. I think she was VP of marketing at the time. She really drove the culture there. They were just a team of, hardworking.
Yeah.
Just, they all wanted to win. It was awesome. It really came together well.
That's awesome. Today, we know strategics are buying businesses at later stages of growth, which influence the type of leaders as well as even the types of roles organizations may bring in today.
No, for sure. I think you're right. I think, we have seen NA shift quite a bit. It's something we talk about kind of from fund 1 to fund 3 in terms of interest in exits, in terms of the size of business that they were at that time. And, I think the advice we give is ultimately to build a good business and, to be focused on both top and bottom line kind of always. How that maybe translates from a leadership perspective is more around, maybe, especially as you scale, but like more around capital efficiency, more around using data to inform your judgment and your commercial strategy. I do think the game gets a lot more sophisticated as you grow, and it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. Like, I think you can have great success 0 to 100 million with just a really great product and reasonable distribution, and really strong velocity. But then I think once you're above that, being able to lead with data, to become a category captain, things along those lines, which if you're a 0 to 50 million brand, like, you might not even know that term, but ultimately that leadership is kind of critical. And whether you're being distributed by XYZ or ABC can mean a difference in 2x your revenue. And so there are a lot of very strategic decisions that then have maybe product implications as well. As you're kind of diversifying your channel, what are you offering to the club channel that's different from other channels, and how are you going to stop that from eroding your relationships with other retailers? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. The question is, like, is this the leader who can take it all the way? And if not, will they be open to bringing in the right person when the time is needed?
I saw recently you wrote an awesome piece on Forbes about building your dream team, and you just highlight how the right hires can make or break a business. For CEOs that are leading CPG companies, what's the single most important step from your perspective that they can ensure that they're hiring someone who's a great cultural fit, not just the right skill set?
Yeah, also pretty subjective. I'd say, to the extent you're able to articulate and define the company's values very early on, and then kind of hire against them with discipline, then that's kind of the way to continue to support your culture. I guess a lot of that kind of sounds a little bit maybe fluffy or kind of pie in the sky. And I think, a lot of folks say things like we're a really scrappy business and that's one of our core values. And so, okay, that's great, but if that's like a core value, then like I want to hear how you're asking folks to find creative solutions when they have limited resources, and what are examples of that when you hire a COO or a VP of ops, and how they've done that in their previous life so that they can bring that value with them in action to the current company. So I'd say be values driven. I do think, the old adage of one bad apple can spoil the bunch is absolutely true in small organizations. And, when you're 50 people or fewer, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows a lot of what everybody else is doing. And, one non-fit can really be a morale detractor. And so I'd err on the side of values, in the early days.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And really good, perspective, in terms of there's one thing to say you're scrappy, there's another thing to say and share specific examples of how you
Mhm.
were scrappy, right?
Mhm.
What did you do resourcefully? What was your team size when you joined that business versus how did you build it to when you exited the business after, a sale, right? So,
For sure.
totally agree with you. To wrap up, as we think about 2020, a lot of businesses are in planning mode in terms of budgets, but also hiring. What's some advice you're sharing with your portcos around, roles or hiring?
I mean, I say this a lot in this year and any year, but plan for the worst, hope for the best. I
Mm,
think it is particularly important in times of uncertainty, which it seems like are never ending. Obviously, really, since COVID, there's been no shortage of just, tidal wave after tidal wave of challenges facing the industry. So, to me, that I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but it really puts capital efficiency and kind of using data at the top of the pile, because I think if you have a strong sense of both of those, then you can really control your own destiny much more easily. And in an uncertain environment, being at the mercy of capital markets is a really tough place to be, even for the best businesses. As you grow, not everybody can be doing everything, but like the first couple of years, everybody's literally doing everything. And so,
right.
is this somebody who can transition from sales and marketing to just sales, or, all finance to maybe commercial strategy or something? And so the roles do become more specific as you grow. And I think just given how volatile the environment is, being ready for anything matters.
I love that. Great perspective, great sentiments. Again, you have just incredible experience over the years. Dayton, thanks so much for joining.
Very kind. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.